Hey, what's up everyone? It's Nanu here. Today, I'm gonna go over my Sylvanus progression kill. This is a point of view of me when we progged the boss and then killed it. This is not farm, this is pure progression. I've been meaning to put this out for a while. We killed it, I think 3 months ago now, and I just never got around to do it. I know there are some guilds that are just now approaching Sylv, so I thought, why not try to help any other brewmasters or tanks out there that are trying to snag CE for that last, that last minute CE kill and stuff. Try to help people, get that kill and stuff. Because tanks on this fight you have a very important job for P1 and P3 and P2. But P3 is probably the most unforgiving spot for tanks, and learning the nuances of picking up puddles, surviving the tank nuke, all that stuff is going to help a lot, and I'm just going to get right into it. So, on pull, we do a 10-second pull timer. I'm the tank that takes the boss first, so I'm going to taunt here. I'm going to take the boss first. And during the ranger shot, you're going to get into red stagger if you don't have a warlock, or even if you do, casting that whatever the debuff is that makes the target attack slower and weaker. I think it's Curse of Weakness, not too sure. The funny part is we did most of progression with the warlock, and then towards when we were close to killing it, he couldn't play anymore. So for me, the tank hit went from not hitting that hard to all of a sudden it felt like it hit harder. But regardless, as a brewmaster, you have a very good kit to mitigate the tank nuke. So what you want to do is, when the ranger shot is going out, you're going to want to purify every time so that you get at least 6 to maybe 10 stacks of your chi, so that when the first tank nuke goes out, which is you're going to see it in 3 seconds, my timers are at the top left here. The tank nuke goes out, you pop Celestial Brew, and you basically mitigate the entire hit, and you still have like 20k left on the shield when the other tank taunts off. So you mitigate that entire hit basically. Now what's going to happen is the other tank, after you get the first hit, is going to taunt off you. And chains are going to go out. You're going to run back to the boss. The other tank is going to go around here, I think. He's going to also get chained. And you're going to taunt off after he gets the tank nuke. You taunt, and then you're going to get a ranger shot into a tank nuke. So what I did here was, I could have probably Celestial Brewed, because like I'm sitting on a 5-stack chi, on 5 stacks of chi. But instead what I do is I use Aegis, the trinket off the 9. I did a lot of progression with the scale, because I thought the absorb was better. A little tidbit of info here is it's not. Aegis is way better because it's going to absorb more, and it's gonna basically make you immune to damage while that goes out. So you have 7 seconds of the trinket, as you can see here in my auras. I'm gonna use it for the ranger shot and the tank nuke. As you can see, I take no damage, and I'm sitting on 8 chi, which is good because for the next tank hit, you want to do that. Going into the sentinel spawns here, I don't know if you notice it, but I can go back. Basically, when the sentinel spawns here after the tank nuke, one is going to fixate on you, and the other one's going to fixate on the DPS. What I did here was, I don't know if you can see it, but actually I don't think I did this, but later on I figured out that you could do this. And this is like big brain as hell. So what you can do is, not to yours, but to the other sentinel, if you go a little farther back, so like you can backpedal a little, you can clash into your sentinel, and then touch of death it. I think I do touch a death it in the clip. I don't remember exactly. Let's see. Do I touch a death? Yes. No, I don't actually. But that's what I did starting after our second kill. I would clash into the sentinel, touch a death it to get like, to just kill it faster, and then go right back into Sylvanus. So what we're going to do here is you're going to see me double roll into Sylv. The blood DK I'm tanking with is going to tank the tank. He's going to take the tank nuke. And what's going to happen is I delay taunting because he's going to have a lot of threat here. He's going to be blood drinkering, and he's going to be using a lot of damage. So threat on Sylvanus can be pretty wonky at times, and if she goes immune, it could mess up the entire tank order and the start. So what I do here is he blood drinkers, and then I taunt. While AMZ is down, you can actually get into the AMZ when the tank nuke gets out, and you're going to take a little bit less of the magic portion of the tank hit, but you don't have to do that. So here what I do is I Celestial Brew again. I consume my stacks. Let's see how many stacks I had. I had a 10 stack Celestial ready to go. So I basically pop that before the tank hit goes out, and I don't take any damage. I didn't really explain this in the first 2 tank nukes that you saw, but that's basically what you want to do. You want to try to have either your Trinket, Celestial Brew, Zen Med, or Fort up for each tank nuke, because Brew's kit deals with the tank nuke really well, but it's about preemptively planning for it. You're not really Blood DK where like you Death Strike after the hit to get health back. You want to pre-mitigate the hit, which is why Celestial Brew is really strong. So as you can see here, I get marked with the chain, and I think I go to the wrong arrow, the wrong side here. Yeah, I go to the wrong side, so I just said screw it, and I go on to the boss. That's really bad. If you get left arrow, you need to go there. Right arrows here, left arrows are here. I messed up. I completely ignored that mechanic, and I actually didn't realize it was a big deal till farm. When we were farming this boss, that happened, and I was like, oh, big no-no to that. Yeah, so he's gonna take the tank hit. I'm gonna taunt. She's going to go jump to the center. Your DPS are going to be baiting it there, so she's going to most likely go there if that's the strat you use. Now, under here is kind of interesting. So you have a few options when it comes to mitigating the hit here. If you have a Pally, he's probably going to be Ashening here. So I don't remember if I did this correctly, but under Ashen and an AMZ, you don't actually have to use Celestial Brew here. So let's see what I did here. I Fort Brewed here. Okay. That's actually a good thing, because if you Fort Brew early here around this spot, you're going to be able to use Fort Brew about 3 or 4 times on the fight. I think you'll get it somewhere in P2 for sure, probably after the burn phase, and then somewhere in P3. So it's good to use Fort Brew early so that you get more uses of it, but it's also good to use the full effectiveness of Fort Brew. And I think what I did here is because I didn't want to use Celestial, I was pooling. That's another thing. I know I'm pausing it a lot, but I want to go over something very big for Brewmasters is pooling chi and using purifying effectively are 2 different things. If you're pooling, you're kind of just pressing purify to get chi stacks so that your Celestial's bigger. But if you're purifying effectively, it means you're going into Red Saga and you're getting rid of it immediately, which is also fine. And the more damage you take, the more Red Stagger you're in, the more stacks you're going to get from Celestial or from your chi stacks, which my chi stacks, I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but they're tracked right here. Right now I'm at 7 and the duration is 12 seconds. The duration's underneath and the stack charge is above. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be under Fort. Another thing here is your strat might be different from what we did, but my strat here, what we decided was I was going to hold the boss longer here. He was going to take more tank nuke hits because he can immune some of them with AMS as a blood decay. But for me, our strat here was to basically let me hold the boss for longer. And throughout progression, we swapped our healer comp quite a lot. During early progression, we had a Resto Druid. He's playing Feral in the fight right now. I would call for Ironbark here and save a bunch of damage mitigation, or a bunch of my mitigation, for later on in the fight. So I basically figured out a way to not have to use DR, which you don't have to do, but I basically did it to get Fort Brew, to get a usage out of Fort Brew. So I didn't call for I didn't call for Sack, I didn't call for Ironbark or GS here. So basically what happens is I hold the boss for a long time, so I'm going to be taking a lot of ranger shots, not many tank nukes. I don't think I take any extra tank nukes here. I think my off tank will, or my co-tank will taunt off me here. Pretty sure. Yeah, he taunts off. He's going to take the tank nuke. And then she's going to go back into Veil. And then I'm going to taunt. So when she goes over here, you can actually, as a Brewmaster, keep some uptime on her. It's very min-maxy, but you don't have to do this. You can Jade Lightning from here, and it'll give you some damage uptime, but you don't have to. I think I do. Yeah, I did. Then you can Tiger's Lust here. I get marked to the left chain. So, like I said here, I didn't do that. I didn't actually go to the chain. But what could happen here, and it might happen to you, is when you go to get a chain, the reason why I got asked to go get a chain is because I have 4 of the dot. I'm also Kyrian, so I can cleanse it. I would recommend before these chains go out, you clear yourself. You get rid of the dot, so that way you don't get assigned a chain. So yeah, you take the tank nuke here. I actually Celestial Brewed a little late, so you could see my health went down. But if I didn't Celestial Brew late, my health wouldn't have gone down a lot at all. So what happens here is, I should explain it. What happens here is my DK off co-tank is going to take 2 of the tank nukes, which basically lets me not have to hold the boss for long here. But after he takes both the hits, you're going to see here. Oh, actually, I misplayed here. I accidentally taunted after 1 tank nuke, so I got hit with both. But what I did was here, because I got hit with both, I'm pretty sure I Zen meted the first one, I purified the second, and then I call for GS. My co-tank asked me if I was alright at some point here because he knew that I shouldn't have taken that hit, but I was fine. GS, I'm not going to die with GS, and I'm like sitting on, I don't have a lot of defensives up, but I can Aegis. I think I Aegis here too. But yeah, basically now here, you're going to want to get off the boss. Because you could accidentally, as a tank, push her when she's not supposed to be. As you can see in the left corner here, it says 84.03. You want to make sure she never goes under 84%. So if you're a Blood Death Knight, go to the ads. If you're a brew where you have to, like, you know, hit the boss to generate mitigation and cooldown on your brews, go here. For some reason, I didn't go to the ads fast enough, but as a Brewmaster, if you go to the ads, you can leg sweep them. You can ring a piece them off DPS, and you can actually be way more useful than I was here. I for some reason was on the boss for a lot longer, but it could have been because we were short on the push. I don't remember exactly. A little min-max movement thing you can do here is you can Transcendence on circle where you're baiting the thing. As you can see, I did Transcendence back. You don't have to do this. You could even Transcendence on the side to avoid the veil. I just do it because why not, right? Less movement. So what I did here every time was to take strain off the healers is as soon as I got marked with the arrow, sometimes if I had a lot of cheese stacks saved up, I would Celestial Brew so that when the damage goes out, I don't take any. But basically what you want to do here is if you get marked with any of the other arrows, you want to be a little in here and AoEing it down. I was a lot farther, so I was only throwing kegs from afar. I could have gotten way more uptime on that, and you should as a tank be helping kill those. You shouldn't just be running around like I kind of did here. You can save a lot of, you could help a lot of people by basically going in, keg smashing stuff, spinning crane kick stuff, like that should be your duty, is to help people. You could Tiger's List people who are chained and they're close, you know. You can look out for that as a tank and try your best to basically see what you can do to help DP. This part of the fight's pretty simple. I would say, like, it's a little more hectic than heroic because there's swirlies and like 5-6 rives. I don't even know how many rives. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, like 7 rives going out. Just do your best to dodge here. You don't need to use any movement. You just can move. I did this on my blood DK the other day, and you just literally move back and forth. Now here, what I would say you should do, going into the next phase, Tiger Palm and Keg Smash her as much as you can. Keep shuffle up if you want, but you're probably going to lose it by the time you get into P2. So hit Sylvanus as much as you can here. Try to like reduce that, you know, your bruise by Tiger Palming, by Keg Smashing, and then into the phase here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save all my movement speed here, and I'll show you why. I'm the right side tank, by the way, so like if you're going straight, being the left side tank, you probably are going to have a different positional point of view here. But yeah, so basically, as you can see, what I do here is I use both my charges of roll. I can show you again. I use double roll, and then I Tiger's Lust. And what I do is I go to the very left of this rock here. So what I can do is I can jump past a lot of these waves. Because the thing is, as a brew, if you get hit by the waves, as a tank, it's not a big deal. But you're going to be using DR. You're going to be needing DR. And what I did here, I'm going to admit it fully, was very lazy. It was extremely lazy of me to do this. But what I did was, when we come into the ads, I get hit by like 5-6 waves. Four waves. As you can see, I have 4 stacks. So what I do here is, the reason why I got hit by some of the waves is so I can run to the mob as fast as I can to gain threat, because there were some times where I would get there kind of late and a DPS would die. I would say that's more so the DPS's fault for not really holding themselves back and waiting, but we do kind of have to kill these fast, so it's not a big deal. It's not really their fault. So when I get here, I called for sack. As you can see, my external usage is here. One of the H-Pals will sack me, and I'll start, I'll pop Weapons of Order and Aegis going into it, because Because these adds actually hurt a lot. And if you don't have defensives going in, you're going to get chunked. Early prog, like first 50, 60 pulls in, this was putting me at like 10% life. Every time. And I actually tried Necrolord Brew a few times because of this specific mob stack pack here, but the snap threat was really bad and it wasn't a good idea. So yeah, I'm going to pop Aegis, I'm going to purify as much as I can, and I'm going to use sack, and try not to use Celestial Brew when you're under sack. You're going to be taking the DR, it's going to be a wasted defensive. What you're going to do is you're going to get the Veil here as well, and you need to try to position the mobs in ground effects. Your job here is if you have Hunters, Frost Mages, any type of ground effect style DPS, you need to make sure you are keeping that there, because the Goliath and the Summoner need to die fast. Another thing you're going to notice here is the orbs. I think on our kill we actually missed an orb kick. Got feared. So be mindful of that as a tank. You could be a backup interrupt. You could even touch a death one of the orbs if the kick is about to go off. You don't have a kick. I know that's a very bad usage of touch of death, but don't be afraid to, in this area here, use touch of death to get it on cooldown and to clear your stagger if you need to. Because touch of death, clearing your stagger, is huge. It's really important to go into the next part of the fight pretty healthy, because you're going to be on Sylv again. There's going to be, you know, ranger shots, tank nukes, all that. So over here, the Goliath is what hurts you the most. As you can see, we both are getting stacks. I think that's my the co-tank. He's getting stacks. So as you can see there, we got feared, by the way, because the orb went off. We were okay because I think we tremored one of the shaman's tremor totem. But yeah, so I don't actually. Did you? Well, let me see something. I think what happens here is so one of the warriors sword and board taunts the Goliath off me right there, and I don't think you need it, but for me early prog it was really helpful. And what he would do is he would call that he was taunting. He doesn't do that anymore because like it's engraved, but just to relieve some strain off a tank, you can do that. You don't have to, but he'll taunt off me and get, you know, he'll hold it for a little bit while he has sword and board. If you do have an arms warrior doing that, don't let him hold it for too long. Just basically taunt as soon as you can. The little bit of strain he's going to take off you is going to help tremendously, and I would highly recommend it if you have an arms warrior. Make him go on the side where the Goliath is so he can taunt off you. Alright, so what I do here is we get feared. I move it back into the Wild Spears fades, and then what I do is I use Touch of Death on the Goliath. And the reason being is because I think our side was a little behind. No, we weren't, but the Touch of Death usage there is really good because I clear my stagger. I go into the next part here really late. Going into this phase, if you're a tank with a ranged kick, try to keep an eye on 0.2 seconds left of the kick. And I know that's risky, but the longer you delay the kick here, the more uptime your DPS are going to get. Our rogue here, this one, Mitch, is going to kick it as late as possible. If you can see, he's going to kick it at like 0.3, I think. And what that'll allow you to do is have more uptime on this burn. This is the first burn you're going to see in P2, and juicing her as much as you can here is going to make the rest of the fight a lot better percentage-wise. Because you get to that last seconds of P3, and you could literally lose this fight to the Enrage, which is the last raise cast. So over here, the co-tank is going to take the boss. We didn't have a Warlock here, so I want you guys to be aware of the positioning I had here. You basically want to try to position yourself this way with the DPS, not here. My mistake in early prog was I tried to be here, which was a no-no. You want to always be here as a tank, like right around here, so that you can go this way. If you're here, you're going to fall behind. You're going to have to make more travel time. You want to be on this side. So you're going to dodge the waves. I went a little too far out. You can probably go till about there to dodge every wave, right there. But yeah, so here the veil is going to go out. I put my Transcendence here. Yeah, I put my Transcendence here because we didn't have a Warlock. But what you can do is you don't have to do this. You could just all stack together and then just roll once and you're going to be out of the veil. So as you can see, I Transcendence back and then I go back in here. I would not recommend doing that. And the reason being is because you are going to want to, after this burn phase, get ahead of the DPS for the next ad set. So if you look here, the tank nuke is going to go out. You're going to taunt off. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to start purifying for this tank nuke. And you should be purifying a little bit beforehand, but you're probably not going to get, excuse me, you're not going to get a good enough stack of chi to make this tank nuke not hurt you that much. So if you have your Aegis, I used my Aegis on the previous one, up your Aegis. It's going to do way more better than a 3-stack Celestial Brew. So here, I Celestial Brew, and it consumes pretty much the whole thing. Purify, and then when this second Haunting Wave comes out, you need to get ready to leave. I made a lot of mistakes early in progression where I fell behind, and I had to tail the DPS, which you do not want going in. So as soon as the Haunting Wave goes out, just get the hell away from the boss. You are going to take some ranger shots at a distance. Do not point your back to the boss like I did here. Try to move at an angle. Try to move to the side. Because what's going to happen is these ranger shots you're taking from the distance are going to truck you. So what I did here was, as you can see, is because I knew that I was going to be, trying to beat it, I got another Fort Brew usage here, which is maybe not the best, most effective usage of Fort Brew, but it's going to allow me to be able to get from, here all the way to there. Excuse me, relatively healthier. So I pop Aegis 2 because I was kind of getting chunked and I was a little paranoid here, but you probably don't need the Aegis, just Fort Brew is fine. Going into this set, you want to try to be ahead of every DPS that you can. When you proc this ad set, you need to be patient. You don't have to run in and get threat immediately. Wait for your DPS to get kind of close, dodge the waves, and then when they spawn, get in there and pop Weapons of Order. Popping Weapons of Order is going to give you a little bit of snap threat, especially if you're under Mechanicos, because the AoE blast is going to, debuff the targets with the debuff, and you're gonna be able to get threat of everything pretty quick. I was losing threat on some things, but that was because of the Earth Ellie. So here, I got very lucky as a tank because I didn't have to deal with any of the Veils. You are gonna get Veils here. So if you do get a Veil here, try to move this way if you can, left towards your group so that they can keep uptime. Don't move right, because if you move right, your ranged are going to get out of range. Your melee are going to have to move in an awkward way. It's way better if you can move this way towards the orbs, so that you can kick the orbs if you need to, so that you can stack the mobs on top of the orbs. What I do here is, I'm pretty sure I moved back towards here, but it wasn't like huge. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. But make sure that you have threat here. Some DPS might yoink threat off you, but just be careful. Be mindful of that. I called for sack here because I didn't have a lot of defensives, and you can do that if you have the DR options, but try not to. Try to plan your defensives a little better than I did. Try to use Celestial Brew here, or if you want, use Fort Brew here, because if you use Fort Brew here, you're gonna have it towards the later end of the fight, and that's not a bad thing. Alright, so now going into the third and last burn phase. We got there earlier, so I took, I think, one hit of the daggers while coming in on the bridge. But my co-tank's job here was to get threat first, and then dodge waves. Oh, this is something very important. When you're dodging the waves, do not go the way I did. You want to go this way again. On farm, I've started doing this a lot more, especially when I play my monk specifically on the fight, but you need to go this way. You want to go with the DPS. You don't want to go this way because you can fall behind again. You don't have anywhere to go after here other than P3, which is Jaina's going to be porting you there. But still, don't go this way. It's not a very safe option. It's better to go this way. So another Veil is going to happen. We don't have a Warlock again. Try to go with the group. I led a little bit, but not a huge deal. But it could be costly if you get targeted specifically, because then it could make a bigger thing here. So here I'm going to Celestial Brew that tank nuke. If you notice, again, I went the wrong way on the wave. You don't want to do that. I also got hit a few times because I was in a very bad camera angle and a very bad position. I got a little low here. I was a little concerned, so I popped Aegis. This was actually a mistake on my part. You don't want to use Aegis. I did it out of paranoia, and it was not a good option. Over here, going back really quickly, when you're here, you want to just try to get in a safe spot. So being on the opposite side here would have let me spread better, and I wouldn't have gotten paranoid. You're not a clothy, you're a tank, so don't be afraid to take some spread damage. It's not a big deal. One more thing before I go into P3. Over here, you can do a lot as a Brewmaster. You can ring appease some of the mobs off of... These don't have a threat table. So DPS can actually take a lot of damage from these ads. So the best thing you can do as a Brewmaster is get in there, leg sweep. You can throw kegs to get your brews off CD. You can paralyze things. You can kick things. Be very proactive here about helping out your DPS, because going into P3 healthy is going to be make or break for you on progression and when you're trying to kill the boss. So going here, I think I did go in there with leg sweep. I don't remember exactly. No, we phased fast enough. So going into P3, there's a lot. I'm going to warn you beforehand, there is a lot of information to take in here. Something that you should be doing as soon as you phase into P3 is targeting Sylv as quick as you can and getting out Jade Lightning to put a dot on her. If you're running the Bloodlink set, you can refresh your Bloodlink. You can put Mystic Touch back on the boss. You need to try to squeeze in that global so that you get in a little bit of damage and ticking damage going into P3. Not a huge deal, but I failed to do it here actually, and it was pretty bad. I could have done it, I just didn't. You know. So going into P3, both tanks have two different jobs. I was the journey tank, meaning my job was to, as soon as we get into P3, go clean up the puddle. So what you should do here, and I do this now on farm, but I didn't do this on progression, is exactly where you see my character now, marked with triangle. You want to put Transcendence right there in the center, because what you can do is, when you come back, you can get Dispelled, which my Dispel was in this corner, and then you can immediately Transcendence here to not risk picking up a puddle. After you get Dispelled, you do have a few seconds of immunity from picking up puddles again, but you still should not have that chance be there. So you want to try to get off this platform as fast as possible, and this platform. You want to try to get to this platform before Veil goes off. Then, as soon as you get there, you want to Tiger's Lust yourself and pick up as many puddles as you can. Don't try to be a hero and get every single puddle. Just get the ones that you know you can just basically get in a straight line, or just, you know, curving your character or whatever. But just get off that platform before Veil hits, because you could actually get targeted with Veil and it could ruin the entire pull. So early prog, I noticed that, and I had to just be, you know, snap a lot faster. So clean up some puddles, start purifying a little bit too, so that, you know, you reduce some of the damage intake. And over here, as you can see, I basically got everything I could. This part is very, it's not extremely spicy for you, but as a Brewmaster, you're going to take a lot of ticking damage once this starts to set in. The pools don't really do damage to you on contact. They start to do damage and it ramps up. So what I do here is, because I already used Aegis, Fort Brew's on a 3-minute CD, Celestial Brew is on a minute, is about 45 seconds, as you can see in the weak aura here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to land, and you can actually throw a keg at the boss. What I did was here, I didn't do that. I think I did throw a keg, I don't remember exactly. But basically where the boss is, you want to try to get to the corner here and get ready to be dispelled while Banshees is going out. So you should give yourself some uptime. So what's going to happen here is I had pretty much no defensives except Zen Med. When I go to this corner here, as you can see, I'm going to start channeling my Zen Med and just chilling there waiting to get dispelled. I call for my dispel, and then I'm going to roll out and go hit the boss while Banshee's Fury is going out. The safer play, as I mentioned, is to put Transcendence on where Sylvanus is right now and just Transcendence back. I did not do this till we had this boss on farm, and I wish I did it during progression. I wish I researched it a bit more, because I never really had the problem where I was left with stacks, but you know, it could be a chance, right? So after this, Raze is going to go out, which means you're going to go the next platform here. In our kill here, I could have stayed on Sylvanus and hit her a bit more, but I went a little early, as you can see. I was the first person to go. As a tank, it's not a big deal, but your DPS are going to follow you if they see that you're going early, right? Have a cast bar or set Sylvanus focus and go at the last second of race so that you can give yourself some uptime. I lost a lot of uptime there. And don't do that as a tank. Try to keep as much uptime as you can, because that's going to help you generate brute. So over here, what's going to happen is I'm going to pop Weapons of Order. Pretty sure I pop weapons. Yep. And put Nizao down as well. And just do my DPS rotation on her. And then taunt the boss off. At this part, my co-tank is going to start clearing the next platform and when he gets arrow. So my job here is to hold the boss for a while and damage her and take the tank nuke. So what's going to happen is Arrow's going to go out here. try to plant yourself between them, because you can actually take a lot of damage here. Don't be in a risky spot, because you can actually die from that. You can, or not die, but you can get hurt. The tank nuke went out, and I used Celestial Brew for it. I had a 2-stack Celestial. It's pretty small, but it was good enough. We're gonna spread for the Scream, and during the Scream, stack with your tank. He should be marked, and you guys should be together for most of this part. Always during the spread, stack on your tank. You guys stacking together is going to give your DPS way more room, and that means they take less damage, and your job as a tank is to try to take as much damage as you can so that they don't have to, right? So I'm going to stack with my tank here, and then what's going to happen is Veil is going to go out after the tank nuke. We're going to mitigate the tank nuke with Fort Brew. Still going. And then we're going to gather for Veil. Now, I want to mention something that I'll also mention again later, because it's a lot more spicy later, but if you get affected with Veil as a Brewmaster, it can get very scary for you, especially if you're holding stacks. Don't panic. Try to stack as fast as you can to get rid of those stacks of Veil, because the second you have that healing absorb, things can get scary for you, because Celestial will be less effective, your Expel Harm will be less effective. It can just be scary, and you don't really want it to be scary, right? So you're gonna stack up, you help the group get rid of Veil, and then your co-tank is gonna take the boss. Fury's gonna go out soon, so like I said, put your Transcendence in the center. I didn't do that here. Go to the corner, get dispelled, roll out. If you don't feel like doing the Transcendence thing, just do exactly what I did. Go in the corner, roll out. Now here what's going to happen is your job here is to help clear the puddles that have been re-put on the current platform. So what you want to do is, while your co-tank is tanking, start clearing up. Try to get as many of those puddles out of the way, because if you get more puddles away from your DPS are not going to be at risk of picking up the puddles, and you're not going to wipe to, you know, a random person having a random stack. Any person having a stack of the Banshee's Blight, I think it's called, during Banshee's Fury is basically a wipe. Even one stack can pretty much put your entire group at 0 HP. So just try to get as much as you can. Get it out of the way. Keep them in the corners. Position yourself to where they don't get it. Now here is another taunt swap that is a little dicey. Knives are going to go out. If you get Knives as a tank, be very aware of that, because I'm pretty sure there was a few pulls where I got Knives and didn't realize it, and my ass was wiggling all over the place, and I killed a DPS or two. So get Knives, plant, taunt the boss, do your DPS rotation, and get ready to mitigate the tank nuke. As you can see, my Celestial Brew got completely consumed here because I think it was a weaker one. But basically, here is probably one of your spiciest moments as a tank, or as a Brewmaster for this platform. So you're going to be sitting on a lot of stacks because you just cleared the platform, and then Sylvanus is going to be giving you tank nukes, which are also going to give you stacks of the Blight. So what I did here was, because I had nothing after the tank hit, I called for GS, so I could basically be a little beefier while all the damage was going out, and, you know, while you're taking a bunch of hits, and while you're also, you know, potentially at risk here of getting a Veil. And if you get a Veil, because you're sitting on such high stacks, your health is going to drop immediately. So planning ahead for this Veil is very important. And a lot of our early P3 wipes were to me being a little... I didn't really die to this, but I got low enough to where it would put panic in the healers, and you don't want to do that. So basically using a lot of defensives here is going to save you. If you can have Fort Brew for this part right here, where you take this tank nuke, you're going to be very safe. And as you can see, I'm at 12 stacks now, and all I have is an Aegis and my Celestial Brew coming up. So what's going to happen here is we're going to get the raise soon, and you're going to have to help the group get rid of Veil. So what you're going to do is you're going to stack up, your Aegis is going to keep ticking down, you're going to be taking a lot of damage. So here, if you have the DR available, Iron Bark, Sack, GS, call for it. Because you staying alive from this point on is going to be very important. And for me, this was my stress point of the fight during Prague. So what I did was as soon as my Aegis wore off, I got sack. I called for sack, and as you can see, I get sacked here. I'm sitting on 12 stacks, and the good part of here, of this fight, actually, of this part of the fight, is when we go to the next platform, you're actually going to go in with no stacks. What happened here was one of our priests, I think, forgot to mass the spell, so I actually went to the next area with stacks. As you can see, like I was freaking out a bit, so I went right, like fuck, what do I do? But you want to basically get dispelled before you go there. But Banshee's Fury goes out. I decide to go into my dispel corner early, get dispelled, I lose my stacks. You're not going to be sitting on stacks that much for that long. This was a mistake. I should have been dispelled on the previous platform. Like I said, it was complete, misplay. So I had to get dispelled here. So what we did here, this is the second to last platform. I got dispelled, you go underneath the boss, and you start your DPS rotation again. Your co-tank is going to be taking the boss for the early part of this platform, and then as soon as knives go out and he takes the tank nuke, you want to taunt here. What's going to happen is, you're going to take the tank nuke, and then you're going to immediately spread, and then you're going to have to go for clearing the next platform. So what's going to happen here is, I accidentally stacked on the wrong spot. My co-tank was here, I should have been here with him. I went here like a dumbass. Don't do that. Stack with your tank. Like I said, you already know why, right? So what's going to happen is, I'm going to Celestial Brew, or I didn't Celestial Brew that tank hit, and that's fine. That's not a big deal. You can use something else. I think a Zen Med, or let me see. Nope, I was under Weapons of Order, so it probably did reduce damage because of that. But yeah, so you take the tank nuke here. You can Zen Med if you have it, or you can even use Celestial Brew here. But I would recommend saving it, because after you take this tank nuke, you're immediately going to be marked with the arrow, and you have to go clear the next platform. So what's going to happen here is, as soon as you get the arrow, Veil is going to go out. What I recommend is, as soon as you get targeted with that arrow, get off the platform and start running. Because if you get targeted with Veil, what's going to happen is, while you clear this platform, it's going to get spicy, and you will probably die, because you are going to have no one to stack with you to clear it. I learned that very early on in progression, so I'm happy as hell that when I went over to clear this next platform, I didn't have Veil, but I was sitting on some high stacks. So what I did is, I clear as much as I can. We had a Demon Hunter in our guild clear some of the stacks here, so I left him, I think, just one puddle to clear. I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to go over, I'm going to clear as much as I can before I get hit with the arrow. So that way, what I can do is, as soon as I get hit with the arrow, I have Celestial Brew up. As you can see, I start casting a Vivify, but you don't need that. I think I did it out of panic, because in previous pulls I was a lot lower, but going in with the Celestial Brew lets me clear the puddles, mitigate the tank hit, which is the arrow, not the tank hit, it's just the arrow, and then go back with full health. So you're sitting on 10 stacks now, and what you want to do here is, you want to stay on the boss and hit to actively mitigate and generate brews. So stay in there, hit the boss. You don't taunt off, because your co-tank is going to be tanking the boss at this point, so that you can basically just sit on the puddles and try to keep yourself alive. Healers are going to notice you're taking a lot of damage here, so they'll be healing you as well. If you have DR and you don't have any big defensives, pop something. I'll talk about this more at the end of the video, but there's a reason why a lot of people run Dampen Harm, and why I chose not to, and I'll explain that towards the end of the video. But basically what's going to happen here is, before Banshee's Fury goes out, you want to pick up some of the stacks that are in your corner too, so that you can basically remove them. I don't think I did that. I think I went to the corner of the stack spread. Yeah, I went to the corner of the spread here, but what you can do is, you can just gobble up those stacks, get dispelled, and then go back, so that way the puddles don't go, beyond the halfway point. I misplayed there and went to the corner, and it was just a mess. You don't want to do that, because it risks letting DPS pick it up, and you don't want that. So over here, before the spreads happen, try to clear as much of the puddles as you can to get space for DPS to soak. As you can see, I got very lucky that the knives weren't clogged in this area, and I could clear all the puddles in this area, and it basically cleared up everything for the soaks to be played perfectly. And after you pick up the stacks, just go right back onto the boss. We're getting ready to go to the last platform here. Now what's going to happen is me and the other tank are going to be clearing up puddles to try to take strain off DPS. And there's going to be a veil. When this veil goes out, it can be spicy for you, but you're probably going to be fine because you're going to be, you're going to be sitting on stacks, but people are going to stack with you fast so that you can get rid of the veil stacks. So here, like I mentioned, going from the previous platform to this one, here's what's going to happen is before you go to this next platform, you get dispelled. If you have priests, they're going to mass dispelled. So here what happens is we get mass dispelled, me and the co-tank, and we go to the last platform. Now, like I said, we don't have a warlock. So here, your positioning as a brew is going to be very important, and you going out with the arrow and coming back in as fast as you can is going to be extremely important. So here what happens is, as soon as we go over here, I'm going to taunt the boss. You get hit with the tank nuke right away. I popped Aegis, which helped me mitigate that entire hit perfectly. And then you basically need to just wait till after Fury, and then you want to move her to the Sigil. So what happens is, I go to the corner, I get dispelled, and here I did something a little risky that I would not recommend. But after getting dispelled, I rolled forward into the boss. This can be hairy because if I didn't time this the way I did, I would have gotten murdered by knives. But because it was a good timing on my roll, I was fine. So after we jump forward, go onto the boss, we're going to taunt it after the tank nuke, and we're going to take it immediately after the spread. So it's tank nuke, spread, and then you're going to move it, you're going to taunt and move to Sigil. So I find my co-tank, we stack together for the veil, or for the spread, sorry. And then arrows are going to go out, clear some, we're going to, as tanks, you need to help clear here. So it's either you or your co-tank's job to do that. You can do the ones that are on the Sigil. He needs to do the ones that are kind of far away. So here what I do is I taunt off. And hopefully if you time it properly, you can monk taunt her and she's going to dart her ass to the Sigil. I just stutter step. I just stutter step back so she follows me kind of slow. But basically, the faster you can get her to the Sigil when you lust is going to give melee plethoras more of uptime, and you're going to nuke the boss and she's going to die a lot faster. Because I mistimed my taunt a little bit, specifically as a monk, remember this is monk tech only. Because I mistimed my taunt, she didn't speed up to the Sigil, she just slowly worked her way to the Sigil because I stutter stepped. As you can see, I'm just moving back and she's following me. So we lust, she's a little north of the Sigil, but she needs to be in the Sigil. Like where she is now is perfect. Here, not good. She needs to be in the Sigil so that melee can be hitting her, and the lust effectiveness is huge. So we move her to the Sigil. You're going to take another tank nuke here. If you don't have anything, call for sack, call for whatever you have available. I called for sack. It was a little late. I could have gotten it a little earlier, but it's not a huge deal. You're under lust. You're sitting under ground effect heals. You're going to be fine for these tank nukes. So your co-tank is going to tank when you get marked. He's going to taunt when you get marked with arrow. If you get marked with arrow and there's a pool in your spot, just pick up the pool as a tank. It's not a big deal. What you can do here is you can either Celestial Brew this hit, this arrow, or you can Zen Med it. And then the other thing I would recommend if you don't have a Warlock is put your Transcendence right on the Sigil. So then as soon as you get hit, you can just boop, right back. Transcendence back, but just be careful to not Transcendence on top of knives. If you don't feel comfortable with it, don't do it. But what I did was I made sure that my Transcendence was around here so that the knives wouldn't really do anything to me. So you go in, you get back. Banshee's Fury is going to go out soon, so you just want to get into the position, get dispelled, and then get back onto the boss. Now, after Banshee's Fury gets out, you basically, as tanks, want to make sure she goes back to the Sigil. So all you have to do here is position well and make sure the pools are not close to the Sigil. As long as there are no pools here, as long as you give the DPS proper uptime on Sylv, this is a kill. You just need to play the platforms very, very cleanly. You need to pick up the puddles cleanly, and you need to make sure that your DPS don't have to deal with puddles. Your job as a tank on this fight is more than just tanking the boss. It's clearing the puddles. It's keeping yourself alive. And I will say this is one of the hardest fights I've ever done as a tank. I'm relatively young when it comes to being a WoW player. Not young in that sense, but I've only been playing WoW since Legion. So out of all the fights that I've done, N'Zoth was pretty easy because of verse corruption and other, you know, different elements. This fight is extremely unforgiving on tanks, and if you make mistakes, it's going to cost you the fight. It's going to cost you wipes. The biggest thing you can do as a tank is prepare yourself for P3, because P3 is your test. It is how you can be aware, it is how you can move the puddles, it is how you can position and you know, optimize your DPS and your uptime as a tank too, and this is a kill. So as I said, going back into the review, the video, this is your last check. Make sure that you're using a pot here. Make sure that your DPS are positioned properly to hit the boss, and this is going to be a kill, just like that. We got down to the wire obviously because we had a DPS dead, and this was our first kill. This is pre-farm, so as soon as that happens, it's going to be a kill. Now going back to my talent discussion and stat discussion, talent-wise, as you can see in the video, I went with Bob and Weave over Dampen. I would say Dampen has a lot better value in P3, and if you really want to take it, you can. I probably could have taken Dampen Harm, but I felt like because I was holding the boss for longer in P1, I was getting more value out of Bob and Weave. But if you aren't really actively tanking as much and you just want to absorb hits, Dampen Harm is really good for P3 because when you're holding high stacks, Dampen Harm is going to do a lot of DR for you. A lot. So Dampen Harm is a toss-up. Chi Wave or Eye of the Tiger, or I forget what the other talent is called, but I went with Eye of the Tiger just because I was used to it on progression. You can take the other two options if you want. They do more damage, and the one ability that bounces is going to help you, you know, heal some of your allies a little bit. When it comes to shards, run your Bloodlink set. The damage increase shards are really good, and then the absorb shield one. All those are gonna like really help you in the long run. Try not to run an unholy set on prog at least, because you know the more survivability you have, it's just the better. Some of the early brewmasters were running the unholy set, and it was just mainly for damage. We're at a point in the raid when we kill this where we were geared enough to where we didn't need to squeeze out everything from our tanks. Our goal was to just live. And as a brewmaster, it's going to be all about how you time your celestial brews. Using all your DR at the right time is going to be make or break for you on this fight. So I hope this was helpful. If I didn't explain something properly, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. DM me. You can join my Discord or come to my Twitch when I'm live streaming and ask me any questions. I've done this fight so far as a Brewmaster and a Blood DK, and I will say Blood DK was a lot easier for me. Brew was a lot harder. After doing it on both the tanks, I would definitely say this fight is more suited for Blood DK, because there's a lot in your kit that you can actively do to mitigate the hits. Brew is all about preemptive mitigation, so it's a little more difficult to time it all, but once you get the timing down, it feels really good. I got to a point on Brew where I knew my defensive lineup perfectly, and if I do this fight now, I can pretty much remember every global I pressed, which is cool. And it's a very rewarding feeling to have that kind of mastery on a fight. But yeah, like I said, any comments or any questions, leave it below. Thanks for watching. See you guys around.